The two black belts thought they had finally found an easy target. He was standing alone behind his little auto shop, wearing grease-stained coveralls, his hands covered in oil, and his old pickup sitting on blocks behind him. They were brothers, both tournament champions, both known for intimidating anyone who crossed them. They cornered him between the garage wall and a stack of tires, expecting him to apologize. Instead, the mechanic quietly looked at them, then glanced toward the office window where his young daughter was watching. What happened next would leave the entire neighborhood speechless. Because the quiet single dad they thought was powerless had spent years in special forces, and there was one thing his military training had taught him better than anything else: never underestimate a threat, but never become one yourself. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and protecting those who cannot protect themselves, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Dad's Soul Diaries. Because sometimes the person who looks the weakest is the one who has already survived things nobody else could imagine. His name was Everett Sloan, and his life looked nothing like his past. At 38, Everett owned a small repair shop on the edge of town called Sloan Auto and Service. It wasn't much. The roof leaked during heavy rain, one of the garage doors had to be lifted manually, and half the equipment had been purchased second-hand. But Everett was proud of it. The shop paid the bills, kept food on the table, and allowed him to raise his 10-year-old daughter, Marlo, without answering to anyone. He had become a single father after his wife died unexpectedly several years earlier, and from that moment forward, his priorities had changed completely. Marlo was the reason Everett had walked away from the life he once lived. She was an intelligent, curious girl who loved drawing cars, collecting old postcards, and sitting on a stool near her father while he worked. She knew her dad had once been in the military, but Everett never talked about the details. Whenever she asked about the scars on his forearms or why he sometimes woke before sunrise, he simply told her that his old job had taught him discipline. He never showed her photographs from that period. He never displayed medals. He never told stories about missions. He wanted her to know him as Dad, not as a soldier. Everett had spent years in special forces working in places where mistakes could cost lives. He had learned how to remain calm when everything around him became chaotic. He had learned to observe before acting, to understand people by their movements, and to control fear instead of allowing fear to control him. But the most important lesson he carried home wasn't how to fight. It was knowing when not to. His shop was supposed to be a quiet place where he could leave that life behind. Then the brothers arrived. Their names were Brock and Kellen Voss. They were well known in the local martial arts community. Both were black belts. Both had won regional tournaments. Their photographs appeared on the walls of the nearby training academy, and younger students looked up to them. But behind the trophies and confident smiles was a reputation for bullying anyone they considered weaker. The trouble began over a simple parking space. Brock had started leaving his expensive motorcycle in front of Everett's garage entrance. Everett politely asked him to move it because customers couldn't bring their vehicles inside. Brock laughed and moved it eventually, but the next day he did the same thing. Then Kellen joined him. Everett didn't argue. He simply moved the motorcycle himself and continued working. That apparently made the brothers angrier. They were accustomed to people reacting to them. Fear made them feel powerful. Everett's indifference made them feel invisible. A week later, Brock brought his damaged sports car to the shop. He expected special treatment. Everett treated it like every other vehicle. He inspected the engine, found the problem, and gave Brock an estimate. Brock didn't like the price. He accused Everett of trying to overcharge him. Everett calmly explained the repair. Brock demanded that he fix it for less. Everett refused. There was no shouting. No insult. No threat. But the brothers weren't used to hearing no. 2 days later, they returned after closing. Marlo was inside the office doing homework. Everett was locking the tool cabinets when he heard footsteps behind him. Brock and Kellen stood near the garage entrance. Neither was smiling. Everett looked at them and immediately understood that they hadn't come to discuss a car. He quietly told Marlowe to stay inside the office. She looked through the window. Everett walked toward the brothers. Brock told him that he had embarrassed them by refusing their demands. Everett said he hadn't embarrassed anyone. Kellen stepped forward. He told Everett that people like him needed to learn their place. Everett looked at the two men. He noticed their stance. Weight balanced slightly forward. Shoulders raised. Hands relaxed but ready. Experienced fighters. But also inexperienced at reading consequences. Everett told them that his daughter was inside and asked them to leave. Brock laughed. He said that maybe Everett should teach his daughter what happened when people refused to show respect. That was the moment everything changed. Everett's expression became completely still. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply stepped between the brothers and the office door. Kellen moved first. Everett shifted sideways. The attack missed. He redirected Kellen's momentum and sent him stumbling into a stack of empty tires. Brock immediately charged. Everett avoided the strike, caught Brock's wrist, and controlled his balance. In less than 2 seconds, the famous black belt was on one knee. Everett released him. He didn't punch him. He didn't insult him. He simply told them to leave. Brock stared at him. His face had changed. The confidence was gone. Kellen looked at his brother. Neither understood what had happened. Brock attacked again. This time Everett didn't even move backward. He redirected Brock's arm, turned his body, and placed him against the garage wall without causing serious injury. Kellen froze. Everett looked at both men and told them that he wasn't interested in proving anything. He was protecting his daughter. That was enough. Marlowe watched from behind the office glass. She had never seen her father move like that. She had always thought he was just a mechanic. Now she realized there was an entire part of his life he had never explained. The brothers finally backed away. But the next morning, the story spread through town. People who had watched Brock and Kellen win tournaments couldn't understand how 2 trained black belts had been stopped by an ordinary mechanic. Then Master Gideon Rusk, the owner of the Martial Arts Academy, came to the shop. He had heard what happened. He asked Everett where he had learned to move like that. Everett didn't answer immediately. He wiped his hands with a rag and looked toward Marlowe. Then he told Gideon that he had served in special forces. Gideon's expression changed. He recognized the restraint. The movements weren't flashy. There had been no unnecessary strikes. No attempt to impress anyone. Every movement had been designed to end the threat as quickly as possible. Gideon asked why Everett had never mentioned his military background. Everett said because he didn't want his daughter growing up thinking violence was something to admire. He had seen enough violence for several lifetimes. He wanted Marlowe to understand something different. Strength was responsibility. Power was restraint. And courage wasn't about making people afraid. Gideon respected him immediately. But Everett's past soon became public. A local newspaper wrote about the incident. People began calling him a hero. Everett hated it. He didn't want attention. He didn't want people asking about his military career. He simply wanted to repair cars and raise his daughter. But then something unexpected happened. Brock returned. He wasn't angry this time. He looked exhausted. He told Everett that he wanted to apologize. Everett listened. Brock admitted that he and his brother had become obsessed with winning. They had started believing that being feared was the same as being respected. They had bullied younger students and intimidated competitors because they were terrified of losing their reputation. Everett didn't excuse what they had done. But he listened. Then Brock admitted something else. His younger sister had recently been diagnosed with a serious illness, and the medical bills were overwhelming his family. He had been angry at everyone. He had taken that anger into the dojo. Everett understood something. Pain didn't excuse cruelty. But sometimes cruelty was pain wearing armor. Everett told Brock that an apology mattered only if his behavior changed. Brock agreed. The following week, he returned to the academy. Instead of standing in front of the advanced students, he volunteered to help beginners. For the first time, the children saw a different side of him. He encouraged them. He corrected them patiently. When one little boy failed a technique repeatedly, Brock didn't laugh. He showed him again. And again. Kellen eventually followed his brother's example. The change wasn't immediate. There were setbacks. Old habits returned. But they kept trying. Months later, the academy organized a community charity event to help families struggling with medical expenses. Brock and Kellen volunteered. Everett repaired several vehicles for free. Marlowe sold handmade drawings to raise money. Nobody expected the three men to stand together. But they did.